Trump team under new scrutiny. News that the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was on that call where President Trump asked Ukraine's president to help investigate Joe Biden. And what we're now learning about Attorney General Bill Barr and his global mission to investigate the Russia investigation. All this as President Trump vows to hunt for the whistleblower who sparked the move for impeachment.
Breaking overseas, chaos and clashes. Mass protests turning violent in Hong Kong as thousands take to the streets on one of the biggest national holidays. A protester reportedly shot. Our reporter is there on the scene.
Massive bridge collapse caught on camera. The tourist attraction crumbling, sending an oil tanker crashing onto boats below, trapping people on board. The Air Force, Army, and Navy racing to rescue survivors.
Summer scorcher in October. Temperatures topping 90 degrees for millions of Americans closing schools. As the center of the country faces a flash flooding threat, high water rescues overnight, and our live demo, how to escape a trapped car.
The airport vehicle out of control on the runway, getting dangerously close to a plane. And the hero tarmac worker who stopped it just in time.
And ballroom bombshell. The NFL star dropping out, stunning fans. And the Office star quick stepping her way right to the top of the leaderboard.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America. Perfect song, working down to 5 is right. And it's great to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. And it was a big night in the ballroom.
Ray Lewis.
I know.
Who could have seen this coming? That surprising exit after an injury. All the details are coming up a bit later, but first, some major headlines.
That's right. The impeachment net is getting wider right now. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was on that president's phone call with Ukraine. The House has given him a Friday deadline to turn over documents. The president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is also facing a new subpoena in the impeachment inquiry. Attorney General William Barr has traveled overseas to ask foreign governments to help investigate the origins of the Russian investigation. And all this as President Trump is targeting his accusers, hoping to reveal the whistleblower's identity.
Our senior congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, starts us off from Capitol Hill. She has all the latest and all that. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, this impeachment inquiry has only been underway for a week, but it is swiftly gaining momentum. Democrats are now zeroing in on some of the president's closest allies, as this morning there are now new questions about whether the president may have used his office for political gain. This morning, the pressure is heating up on President Trump's inner circle. ABC News has learned that Trump's Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was listening in on that July phone call between Trump and the Ukrainian president, the call at the center of the impeachment inquiry. The revelation comes after Pompeo told our Martha Raddatz he didn't know about the whistleblower report of that call.
And I want to turn to this whistleblower complaint, Mr. Secretary. The complaint involving the president and a phone call with a foreign leader to the director of National Intelligence Inspector General. What do you know about those conversations?
So you just gave me a report about a IC whistleblower complaint, none of which I've seen.
Congressional investigators have already subpoenaed Pompeo for documents amid questions about the State Department's role and whether the agency gave instructions to the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
To the best of my knowledge, and from what I've seen so far, each of the actions that were undertaken by State Department officials was entirely appropriate.
Democrats also issuing a subpoena Monday to Giuliani, seeking documents about his efforts to push Ukraine to investigate Trump's political rivals. Overnight, Giuliani not sure if he'll comply.
I don't know. I'm weighing the alternatives. I'll kind of like go through it. I'll get all my evidence together. I'll get my charts.
And while the impeachment inquiry is squarely focused on Trump's call to the president of Ukraine, this morning there are new questions about whether the president has used his office for personal political gain in other instances too. ABC News confirming the president recently asked the Australian Prime Minister to help his Attorney General Bill Barr dig into the origins of the Mueller investigation, which Trump has long claimed was a political hit job, a theory widely debunked by the U.S. intelligence community. In a statement, the White House says the DOJ simply requested that the president provide introductions to facilitate that ongoing inquiry, and he did so. That's all. And we've learned Barr himself was in Italy just last week meeting with senior officials there. That trip also part of the Justice Department's ongoing investigation of the Mueller probe. Democrats are not happy about it.
The Attorney General really is functioning more as the president's personal attorney than as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States.
Now, as Democrats ramp up their investigation, the president is ramping up his attacks against the whistleblower. Trump says he deserves to meet his accuser, but the whistleblower's attorney says that his client is entitled to anonymity and that retaliating against this person would be a violation of federal law. George.
Okay, Mary, thanks. Public opinion is key to any impeachment showdown, and new polls indicate an increase in support for impeachment. In the first full poll since Speaker Pelosi announced a formal investigation, Quinnipiac shows a 10-point jump in support for impeachment and removing President Trump from office. The public now split right down the middle, 47 for, 47 against. A majority, 52%, support pursuing the impeachment inquiry. And as the pressure mounts, President Trump leading his own public defense and, as Mary said, targeting the whistleblower.
We're trying to find out about a whistleblower. When you have a whistleblower that reports things that were incorrect, as you know, and you probably now have figured it out, the statement I made to the president of Ukraine, a good man, a nice man, knew was perfect. And it's a disgrace. This whole thing is a disgrace. There's been tremendous corruption.
So let's analyze all this now with our chief White House correspondent, John Karl, our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. And John, let me begin with you. As I said in the intro right there, the president is front and center on this. He is his defense team.
It's clear, George, that the president is directing the response to all of this himself, both through his tweeting, some 30 tweets over the weekend. But in terms of this attack on the whistleblower, it has been relentless. Of course, it started by suggesting that the whistleblower or those who talk to the whistleblower are essentially spies, and the punishment for spying used to be death. And now demanding to know to out the whistleblower. His own aides have called the whistleblower part of a deep state conspiracy. George, this could well be a violation of federal whistleblower protection laws and is also the kind of thing that could end up being one of the articles of impeachment against the president, intimidating the whistleblower.
Yeah, the more he tries to target him. Let's bring in Dan Abrams for more on this right now. We just saw Rudy Giuliani get a subpoena as well. Of course, he's the president's personal attorney. He says he's deliberating whether or not he's going to comply with the subpoena, but does he really have a choice?
No. I mean, his arguments are likely to be very weak. First of all, to get attorney-client privilege, you have to be serving as the attorney. So Rudy Giuliani has said, I wasn't acting as a lawyer. I was acting as a straighten-out government. Well, if that's the case, then there is no attorney-client privilege, period. But he could argue, well, you know what, there are instances where I was acting as his attorney. Okay, fair enough. You've got a problem, A, that Congress can typically compel even attorney-client protected privilege. B, you've got the possibility of what's called waiver, meaning when he's out there talking about it publicly, there is no more attorney-client privilege. The whole point of the attorney-client privilege is to say, we can have a private conversation. We can talk about these things. If Rudy Giuliani's been out talking about those conversations, that would also be waiver.
So if he doesn't comply, that could also become an article of impeachment. Meantime, we have this extraordinary situation where the Attorney General is out traveling overseas trying to enlist foreign nations in this investigation of the Russia investigation.
Right. And what we thought was happening was that this respected former federal prosecutor, John Durham, was doing his own investigation. And the sense was, all right, there's a level of independence to this. It's being handed off to Durham. He's going to be investigating. If Barr himself is out actually interviewing witnesses and talking to people, then Durham isn't really doing the investigation. Barr's doing the investigation. And that certainly runs the risk of giving the impression that this is an investigation for the president to retaliate against Robert Mueller as opposed to an independent one.
Meantime, Chad, any sense the White House is actually developing a more comprehensive, coordinated strategy?
It doesn't really look that way, George. In fact, one indicator of this, as late as yesterday, White House legal team was still trying to get a definitive answer as to whether or not Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was on the president's call with President Zelensky of Ukraine. Of course, it turns out he was. But they didn't know that for sure until yesterday.
And of course, he could have just told them. John Karl, Dan Abrams, thanks very much. Michael?
All right, George, we're going to go overseas now to the showdown on the streets of Hong Kong. Some of the biggest pro-democracy protests yet are spreading through the city. And new reports this morning that one of the protesters was shot. Ian Panel is live on the scene with the latest this morning. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Michael. Crazy scenes here on the streets of Hong Kong. We just had to run shortly before we came on air. Don't know if you can see those lights down there, but that's riot police positions. There is a water cannon also down there. They've been firing tear gas. This started as a largely peaceful protest today. We saw tens of thousands of people out onto the streets. It was a family affair, but they wanted to make their point in this pro-democracy demonstration. But police came out with tear gas, with water cannon, with rubber bullets, and the protesters responded with petrol bombs and with bricks, and been running skirmishes in 7 districts. But as you say, there are reports that one of the protesters was shot with a live round, and we've certainly been shown a video which appears to show a protester being shot at close range. All of this comes on the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. We've seen massive celebrations going on in Beijing, the largest ever military parade, 15,000 soldiers on Tiananmen Square. We've seen tanks, fighter jets. We've also seen some missiles which apparently can avoid US defenses. President Xi wanted this to be a showcase for Chinese power. The protesters here wanted you to see a very different side of China, and in that, they've succeeded. Robin?
Remains a tense scene over there. All right, Ian, thank you. Now to that terrifying bridge collapse in Taiwan. Take a look at this video showing the moment that bridge crumbles, sending an oil tanker slamming into boats below. Lama Hassan has more details for us. Good morning, Lama.
And good morning to you, Robin. Yes, exactly. That frightening moment caught on camera showing the 60-foot steel arch bridge collapsing and crashing onto the boats below in the water, trapping people on board. A terrifying bridge collapse. Watch as this oil tanker truck makes its way across the bridge when it suddenly gives way, sending the truck plunging onto 2 boats below, leaving 6 people trapped in the rubble and sending more than a dozen more into the water. Rescue workers leapt into action, scouring the wreckage for victims, rushing at least 10 people to the hospital, 6 of them with serious injuries. Officials don't yet know the cause of the collapse, but hours earlier, this crowded seaport on the north end of the island was rocked by a typhoon. Well, it's not clear if the typhoon, which brought strong winds and rain, weakened the bridge, which was built in 1998. But in previous years, maintenance consultants had found that some of the cables had rusted and parts of the bridge had been damaged, which, George, of course, investigators will now be taking a look at.
Yeah, that was such a scary moment. Okay, Lama, thanks very much. We're going to move on now to that rough weather hitting the center of the country. The system that dumped that September snow in Montana is moving east, bringing heavy rain and flash floods to the Midwest. And Ginger has the latest. Good morning, Ginger.
Good morning, George. We've already seen this front squeeze out too much water too fast. Look at these images from Duluth, Minnesota. 5.5 inches of rain, people being pulled out, their cars underwater. And now we've got more of this to look for. The Nemadji River, by the way, near Duluth, is at its close to its highest record level. So we're going to be watching that. But watch all the states included in this. Michigan back to Wisconsin to New Mexico, which today going to see the impacts from the flash flood threat. That low pressure system squeezing the deep tropical moisture that's riding along that ridge that's giving so many folks record highs could produce more than 4 inches of rain. George.
Okay, Ginger, thanks very much. And coming up in our next hour, we've got a live demonstration showing what to do if your car ever gets trapped in a flash flood. Michael?
All right, George, now to a U.S. citizen facing charges accused of being a covert agent, passing classified information to China. Prosecutors say they have video of him conducting so-called dead drops, which is the kind of thing you see in